guys, welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here officially, welcome to the channel. This is a series where we look at various different oddities in gaming that developers either made to help the player get more into the game, visually or physically. Most had influences in games and designs years past when they were active, and well, today maybe not so much. Look, I'm gonna be honest, I've been a bit busy and kind of wanted to do one that was, well, low-hanging fruit. So with that admission, let's go ahead and take a look at R.O.B the robot. Now, in a lot of ways, our little robot friend was the creation of the rather well-known video game crash of 1983. And just in case some of you don't know, we'll go over that real quick just to clear it up for anyone who hasn't done any digging on the subject. Now, the video game industry was booming, especially after Atari vitalized it from 1977 to the mid to 1980s. So much so that other competition sprung up along with it and tons of development houses as well. At this time, there was really no licensing or agreements with console makers, so if you could make a game, you could mostly just release it on that console. This led to a lot of subpar and flaky software, and in the end of the day, led to a lack of consumer confidence to the point that people just stopped buying games. This led to the market having a major downturn. In fact, one of the most famous urban legends of the video game industry came as a result of this, and that was that Atari buried its overproduced stock of ET games in the Alamogordo, New Mexico. This was largely seen as a myth until Fuel Entertainment actually went and dug up the site years later, confirming that Atari had actually indeed buried all the ET cartridges there. Now, keep in mind, this video game crash primarily affected the United States and not the rest of the world. Overseas, things like the ZX Spectrum, and most notably the Famicom, were around and doing quite well. This is where R.O.B starts to come into play a little bit. You see, Nintendo wanted to bring their popular Famicom console over to the United States. However, the market was still reeling from the crash, and people just weren't very interested in marketing video game consoles. This was apparent by their first attempt at bringing over the Nintendo AVS. You see, in 1984, they tried to unveil this system at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. It came with a keyboard, handheld joystick, and a light gun/wand. Yes, the gun could turn into a wand and then back into a gun. It was kind of a transformer. It even had wireless controllers, likely the first in the industry. Now, this system had a few issues. The controllers were a little less responsive than they should be, and this was mostly given to the fact that it used infrared technology for the wireless connectivity, and well, people just saw a video game console. However, Nintendo was sure the console would work in the United States. They just had to think of a way to make people think of it more of a toy than a video game system. To that end, they started working on a few things. One, redesigning it to look a little bit less like a computer and more like something we keep in, say, their living room. Secondly, they renamed the system as an entertainment system to avoid the stigma of a video game console. They also came up with the Nintendo Seal of Approval to assure the public that the games met with some form of standard, and last but not least was our friendly little buddy R.O.B. R.O.B was meant to look like a futuristic toy. This made the system look more like an advanced toy for your kid than just a video game console. Almost every display would predominantly feature R.O.B as part of it to draw attention. And I know this sounds like a stupid gimmick, but it worked. People loved the look of the little robot, and the console started flying off the shelves. The question is, though, how good was R.O.B overall? Well, let's take a look and see. R.O.B was essentially an independent part of the NES console itself. You would insert batteries into the bottom of the unit and set him in the right configuration for the game you wanted to play. More on this later. And then power on the system. Once a game was inserted that R.O.B would work with, the TV would send specific flashes to R.O.B to signal him to do an action. Our heroic little robot would recognize these through a sensor on his head to do the appropriate action. Now, R.O.B only really had two games that ever worked with him. One was Gyromite, which was packed with our little buddy here. In this, you would navigate your character with the help of R.O.B through a series of puzzle platforming stages. In order for R.O.B to help you do this, you had to attach two small claw hands onto R.O.B himself and place the controller under those hands. When R.O.B needed to perform an action, the robot could spin while atop, called a gyro, and then pick it up and place it on a button. Why spin it, you ask? Well, this was meant so that the object could stay in place long enough for the button press to be recognized. This would then allow a barrier in front of the player to move so they could get past it and continue collecting bombs before time ran out. If this sounds dumb to you, it's because it's a little dumb. They could have given him range to press the buttons or to hold the controller so he could have pressed them, but I think the reason they didn't is because they had a second game that they had in mind when they made him. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Stack Up, the game that proves that Nintendo sits on a bed of lies when it comes to the seal of approval. Seriously, this game hardly counts as a game, and it's probably one of the most fiddly things ever. In order to play this game, you need to set up this tray, and I'm just going to call this thing a tray, and then stack these little pucks on it, praying you don't knock them over a few dozen times. You would then move the doctor to the appropriate action, left, right, up, down, open, or close, to direct Rob to the piece you wanted him to pick up and move. The idea was to make the stack that you had on Rob match the stack that was on the screen. There were a few issues with this. The first was that Rob didn't always move so well, so sometimes whenever you had them stacked, they would just fall over while you were moving it. The second most glaring one is that Rob had no way of knowing when you were doing or what you were doing, and neither did the game. So essentially you could just lie your way through the whole game and not do anything at all. I suspect the movements in this game influenced the design the most, and was the reason that he wasn't really designed to hold the controller in a more reasonable manner. What are some of your memories of Rob? Did you ever own one, and if so, what'd you think of it? Do you still want one today, even if it's just a novelty? I mean, I'll admit that even as I write this, I sort of dream of having one just to sit on the shelf behind me in a room full of things like this and a Virtual Boy. Just to have them for the novelty of it. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. While you're there, if you could do me one more favor, if you're not subscribed, please do so. Lets me know you enjoy the content I make and helps out the channel. Also throw the video a like for, well, the same reasons. However, thank you for spending part of your day with me, and until next time, happy gaming!